I'm Jerry, and this is Chef Dennis Chan, who I'm sure you know because we're on his channel. And this is the Snack Stories podcast. Our guest today is Chef Steve Thurston. Chef Steve is a good friend of mine, and he has this unbelievable story of his life journey, and I thought it's really worth sharing. So we're going to do that today. But first, my favorite part, snacks. So we got snacks from all over the world today. This one, I want to say Turkey or Eastern Europe, but there's almost no English, so I don't know. If you know, put it in the comments because we'd love to know. I stopped at I was in Chicago for the National Restaurant Convention a week, 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks, something like that. Anyway, a week or two ago. And I found a store called Exotic Snack Guys, and they have snacks from all over the world. So if you ever visit Chicago, it's really cool. You could find like hundreds of chip flavors and all kinds of other fun things. So today we're going to dive into some of the things that I got there. So KFC flavored potato chips. Love KFC. As I know, Chef Dennis. Chef Dennis is my line I love from Chef Dennis is my favorite flavor is fried.
It is.
So, favorite flavor. And our next one is going to be West Indies hot and sweet chili. I think that's Thailand. I'm pretty sure that's Thailand. Anyway, we've got pizza flavored Cheetos, which also looks like somewhere in Eastern Europe or Turkey.
And their rings.
Yes, should be fun. And then this is actually a soda I love, so it'll be fun for you guys to try it. It's called Milkus. It has some like powdered skim milk in it, which gives it like a really smooth mouthfeel versus a typical soda. So we'll dive in on that one. Pop it open. Let's pour.
Sure, it's nice and hot.
It is a little warm. I kept it in the car for the day because we should have got a little ice, but it'll be okay.
Nothing says yummy like a hot, creamy drink to start.
This is what happens when you hang with your friends.
This is from Korea, right?
Everything. It's from Korea.
Korea, and it's got
This
melon.
is melon. They make a peach.
Okay.
There might be other flavors. Peach is my favorite, but I didn't have any, so we're going melon today.
That's nice. It's sweet.
What do we think?
I think it needs to be cold.
It definitely needs to be cold.
I definitely agree with the cold part.
Yeah.
It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
The melon part is very pleasant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there might have been like more carbonation if it was cold. Like the carbonation would be more
Would have
prevalent.
popped more. Yeah. That makes sense.
It's not bad.
Yeah, it'll be good for washing down these KFC chips.
Yeah, sure.
We'll do peach one day. Peach is pretty amazing. All right, let's grab a chip.
All right.
We're gonna dive into
Chip.
KFC flavored chips to kick things off.
You know, there's 31 grams of sugar in here.
It's soda, man. It has 1,000,000 grams of sugar always. All right, let's go.
All right.
You definitely get some chicken flavor. It almost tastes like there's some stuffing in there too. It has like a Thanksgiving
Yes,
stuffing
it does
flavor
have
to
that
it.
chicken stovetop.
I think I would call
flavor
this
to it.
turkey and stuffing instead of KFC.
It would
Chip
pass
stuff.
for that.
Chef Steve always the last word.
It's
What
that
do we
little
think?
sagey
I was
flavor
going to say,
in
it
there.
almost feels like mirepoix in my mouth.
Yes. Yeah. Sagey, onion,
Let's see what I have.
celery.
Yeah, that one was hot.
If this is hot, I'm
It's
going to
not.
be screwed.
It's not. It's not.
Okay, so
I'm-
this is West Indies
At least I was
chili.
promised by the guy that it wasn't, because I'm
Okay.
like I cannot handle any spice. So
Well, I can, but Jesus, I mean, like, it says West Indies, I'm thinking like smoking out.
Yeah, like Scotch bonnet peppers and stuff. But your
there's not.
the salesman said that this was the best flavored one, right?
Yep. So the sales guy at the Exotic Snack Shop said that was his favorite chip in the whole store. Too spicy?
No,
It's late. The
Onion,
spice is
late,
really
garlic.
late.
yeah, it comes in last.
Yeah, definitely.
I feel like it's a Willy Wonka chip.
I like that. I thought that was good. If I like spicy more, I would be in love.
This is from India.
From India. Okay.
From India.
Got it.
That explains
boys.
the heat.
Cheeto, pizza flavored Cheetos.
Cheeto ring.
They put Cheetos on everything now.
It smells like styrofoam.
That was an odd flavor.
Very.
It doesn't taste like pizza to me.
It doesn't.
It does have a hint
What
of
does it
spice.
taste like? I can't even like put a name on that.
Dirty draws. I mean, it doesn't taste good.
It's weird. That one's the weirdest of the whole group.
Where is this from?
I thought it looked like Eastern Europe or Turkey.
Listen,
Like
I've had
that,
lots
like
of
a
pizza flavored stuff, from pizza flavored chips to whatever. This is
That's
very
just
odd.
pizza. That's the least pizza item I've ever ate.
It must be a really far place from Italy, wherever it's from.
Yeah, so we don't know where this one's from?
Not sure.
It'll say
Not sure.
PepsiCo.
So anyway, Chef Steve, I'm really excited to have you here because you shared your kind of journey with me, and that you have this incredible redemption story. So I'm excited to hear about that. So let's start with you're 17 years old and your mom leaves you in Florida in St. Augustine, right?
Yeah. Just for reference, I was an incredibly hard-headed teenager, very set in my ways. I thought I knew everything at 17, like most young men do. I'm 6'6". My mom's 5'7", I think. So I'm pretty sure my mom just had enough of me trying to be overtly physical and get my way with things. So we moved here from New York. We were here for 3 months. It was my senior year in high school. I didn't want to come here, which was a whole story unto itself, how I ran away and wound up in North Carolina, then back in New York before I ever came to Florida. But she got me down here, and I was here for 3 months, and I went to St. Augustine High School. And I didn't make a lot of friends, but I made a couple friends. I had a girlfriend at the time. And then one day she just says, we're going back to New York. And I kind of settled in. And I felt like I was being jerked all over the place, because I was. And I just decided, I don't really want to go with you. And she said, fine. She found me an apartment down in St. Augustine that was a room to rent. It was $200 a month. She bought me a 1970 Dodge Omni 4-speed. She gave me a couple $100 and she said, there you go. And it was figured out. So immediately I stopped going to school because there was no parental influence in my life. And I just started making the absolute, what a teenager would make decisions for their life without any kind of parental consent. And unfortunately for me, or fortunately, however you look at it, I made a lot of wrong decisions very fast. At the time, I was trying to go to school, work at the Domino's Pizza on A1A, and work at the Food Lion as a bagger, just to try to pay that $200, which like now seems like nothing, to pay that $200 a month and still go to school. So school fell off the radar very quickly. I think at the time I stole a case of Coca-Cola from the Domino's Pizza that I was working at. And the guy who owned it, he was very good to me. And he definitely didn't deserve to get stolen from. And because he counted his inventory, he knew that he was off, which I understand now. He wound up catching me, he wound up firing me. Only because my grandmother raised me with some morals that were still very much alive in me at that point. I went to the Food Lion where I worked, and I bought the soda, and I went back and I gave it to him, and I returned what I took from him. Didn't change the outcome. I was still fired, which was a hard pill to swallow because I actually liked working there. I liked making pizza. But he was very kind to me when I returned the soda. He didn't have to be. He could have called the cops. He could have done whatever, but he gave me a chance. I think I lasted in Florida for roughly 6 months on my own. And then I called my grandmother back in New York, and she told me I could come back only if, previous to this happening, my mom had wanted me to join the military. And I was totally against it. I kind of knew that I wasn't the type of person to have my life be in charge of 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. But because I was in a tight spot, I decided that I would go back to New York. I stayed with my grandmother for a little while. I wound up taking the GED test in North Carolina, and actually the people with the GED test in North Carolina, I remember pretty vividly. we were driving, and my mom said that she knew a place. She found a place where we could take the test today. So when we went to take the test, the lady looked at her and said, "It's a bad idea for anybody to take this test all in one day." And she said, "I don't care." And she put me in. And the lady, when they brought the score back, the lady said actually in math, he scored off the charts. In English, he had some trouble with, because if you don't know me very well, I have trouble with the English language, and it's what we speak. So never scored very high on that, but my math skills were off the chart. So I passed the GED pretty easily. They gave me the diploma or whatever it is, little piece of paper you get. And then when I went up to New York, I actually went through the process of going to the Navy recruiter in New York, and I'm pretty sure that I pissed them off enough to where when I finally wound up getting accepted, they sent me all the way to MEPS, which is where you go to go through all the different channels you go through before you enter the military. And when I went through all of it, they actually sent me home, and they said, "We don't have any jobs for you," which is kind of weird because it's the United States military, so how do they not have a job for me? So I kind of just took it as my mouth getting me in trouble again. And I think another 4 or 5 months went by, we found another Navy recruiter. I wound up getting offered 2 jobs, deck seaman or operations specialist. I knew neither job very well. The only thing I knew is that deck seaman, you were going to work like a chef. You were going to work 12, 15 hours a day. You were going to scrub. You were going to do whatever. I didn't want to do that. So I picked the other one, not knowing. And it's actually a good thing that I picked the other one, because the other one's like a air-conditioned room on the ship, the only one that exists on a Navy ship, and you pretty much plot radar and you plot ships. And it was a good learning experience, but just like anything else, from the ages of 17 to roughly 33, I couldn't keep my mouth shut. I walked off the ship right before it left port one time, so I missed ship's movement, which was huge. I wound up going to captain's mast. The ship came back, or they brought me out to the ship, came back. I wound up doing something else that got me in trouble. I really can't remember what it was. And I went to another captain's mast. They finally wound up just asking me if it was really what I wanted to do or not wanted to do. And I said, I really have no desire to be here. So about 2.5 years into a 4-year stint, they would just wash their hands of me and let me go. And I went back home, and I lived on a friend's couch, who, if it wasn't for this lady, I probably wouldn't even be here, because I literally slept on my best friend's couch. His mom helped take care of me from 18 to, I want to say 21 or 22, until I got caught up in the wrong thing. I used my math skills to steal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I could figure stuff out really fast, and it just came naturally. It wasn't something I had to work very hard at, so therefore I just gravitated towards it because it was easy. So, and I would never really admit this openly, but it is really a part of my story. Me working a cash register somewhere was probably never a good idea, because me figuring out what the person had, how much it was going to cost, and figuring the tax out in my head, and being able to just type a number on the screen that matched that number, and then not actually ringing it in, just putting it in the register, and then taking the money back out later was very easy. And I did that for 6 or 7 months, until that lady who helped take care of me found a jar full of money, thought I was selling drugs, which I wasn't. So I tried to explain why I had all that money, which obviously just lies and more lies, so she wound up kicking me out. And then I went to college for a little while, and I actually played walk-on. I played basketball for a little while at St. Thomas Aquinas. I did 2 years in college. Once again, because I could never bring myself to be dedicated to anything, or I knew that I maybe wanted to do this, but it had a lot of hard work to get there. I just wasn't willing to put in the work to do it. I always wanted to do what was the easier, softer way, so to speak. So whatever avenue I could find to make money, or for instance, when I got into college, I dated a girl who was an RA, who was friends with the lady who did all the paperwork to live on campus. So I finagled my way into getting an apartment on campus because I just used the pathway that was put in front of me. Not because I should have deserved to live on campus or because I had the money to live on campus, because neither one of those things was true.
Right, just found a solution.
Right. And unfortunately, most of my 20s was spent that way. I was in and out of kitchens. Most of my times in kitchens was spent either doing dishes or doing prep. And you know, I started in the kitchen when I was 14 doing dishes in New York. So it was always something easy to gravitate back towards too. The kitchen was easy. And as I grew older and into my 20s, and I did hard drugs for the first time when I was 23, I did ecstasy on my 23rd birthday. And I mean, I just went on a tear for 10 years. Like Motley Crue calls it the decade of decadence. So from 23 to 33, I probably had 100 different kitchen jobs, and I did drugs in every one of those restaurants. If it wasn't snorting cocaine off cutting boards, it was doing something else, or sleeping on the floor of the bar of the restaurant until the next morning and waking up and doing a whole shift. I mean, like, I just did the craziest stuff. And none of those stories are really worth diving into that much, but I just did exactly the wrong thing for a little over a decade. And then when I was 26, I got married to a woman, or as I like to call it, I took a hostage. And she really didn't deserve it. She wasn't a bad woman, but she got caught up in my mess. And through that process, towards the end of the marriage, she kind of just threw a phone book at me and told me to go get some help. And as I woke up and realized I had absolutely nowhere to go, I was living in Gainesville at the time, and I called a number. They got me into Lakeview, which is over here in Jacksonville. I went to Lakeview for 60 days. I went home. I subsequently went back after having a fight with my wife and then going back out and using again. I went back for like another 30-day stay. Really stupid. When I got out of that, I thought it would be a good idea to go stay in a halfway house to, maybe I didn't know how to grow up on my own yet, so I was trying to figure out, maybe at 33, find myself a little bit, not be next to my wife while it was happening, to see if I could grow a little bit on my own. But the problem was that through all of this, no matter what, my one goal was always to find the easiest, softest way. Even after I went through rehab, and in rehab I learned some important things about myself. Like, for one, I never dealt with being abused as a child. So I was molested when I was a kid, and all those things came rushing back to me when I was in rehab. All those things capitalized, and you have to understand, during all of this mess that my life is just upside down, somehow I'm holding it together enough to work like a part-time job in the kitchen, whether it was the Swamp in Gainesville or a couple other small places that were down there, or T's Chop House, which was off of, I can't even remember the name, it was one of the main roads there in Gainesville. All this time I'm trying to do those things and get sober. And when we finally, she said to me that she was going to move to Jacksonville, so I came up here, and I still wasn't 100% sober, but I wound up going to AA off of Beach by Penman. Penman Road has a huge clubhouse, and I wound up meeting a guy there that wound up changing my life. His name is Mike Kelly, and he was sober for a little while, and I literally remember looking at him going, my wife doesn't want me to go home. I don't have anywhere to go. I've been to rehab twice. I'm like batting a million as being the biggest loser that ever lived. And he just said, give me your phone number. And he called me, and like most people who know what AA is, it's a 12-step program. And I walked through the steps. He put my hand in the hand of God like he's supposed to. It's his only job as a sponsor. And because I did it to the best of my ability, I haven't even desired a drink or a drug in almost 16 years.
That's incredible.
I will tell you that there has been points in my sobriety where I thought, once again, I go to meetings, I do a bunch of stuff, right? But the more years that goes by, the more I think I got it handled, the more I think I need AA less. And it's never really been the circumstance. I always find myself gravitating and getting pulled back to AA in some way. I made a lot of good close friends, and I have a lot of good guy friends who I can call, text on a daily basis, talk to them. They help not control my life. They help me flush out the bad ideas that come in my head before I actually let them get to the next step, which is me acting out the bad idea.
Yeah.
So, and I never really did that when I was young. It was just like the first idea that popped in my head. Yeah, let's go.
We all desperately need those people. I have those people in my life where I'm like, hey, I've got this idea, and they're like, no, you're going to make a big mess, Or I think we all do, right? Do you have those people in your life, Dennis?
Absolutely.
You have the people that sometimes they're mentors, sometimes they're friends, sometimes they evolve from mentor to close friend, but they are the people that you filter with. They are your loving filter to try to keep you on the path you need to be on.
God puts those people in our lives. So.
If it wasn't for God, I would be absolutely nowhere. Now, I know that some people have different paths. Some people believe in a higher power. Some people don't. And I'm always okay with that. I don't tell other people what to believe. I don't tell other people what not to believe. I will tell you that I got divorced from my wife after I was just about a year sober. We completely grew apart. I was working at Marker 32 at the time as a grill cook. I spent a few years working for Ben Groeschel and his wife. I learned a lot working for them. I got married to a woman named Lisa Thompson, or I guess Lisa Thurston now, about a year later. We didn't get married right away, we got together. And she had a son and a daughter. And realistically, Lisa probably changed my life more than anything. She gave me hope. Her walk with God was a strong one, so it was easy to kind of like slide right into the pocket there and maybe hitch a little ride on that walk until I was able to develop a strong enough one of my own, which, later I got in sobriety. The walk has been different every aspect of the thing. Sometimes I go away from the walk and he has to remind me and bring me back. You said something to me earlier before we were talking, and so I got fired from the Good Food Company. My first executive chef job in Jacksonville, I worked for the Good Food Company, I think for almost 3 years. And it's where I met Joe Talentino. I don't think I'd met you yet. But it's the first time in my life in my cooking career where Lisa was working with me at the time. And I was imitating the chefs that taught me. So if I was working for Dennis, everything on my menu was a straight rip from Dennis, because I didn't know.
You knew it.
I knew that inside and out, but it hadn't developed me yet. So really, where Lisa came into play was I was working for the Good Food Company, and it was like this weird situation where me and this girl Leslie were like co-chefs, which I've never had happen before. But Lisa came home one day and she was just like, I know you can cook. She's like, well, why don't you just do you and not keep repeating the process? And I had just recently posted a picture of this scallop dish that we did at Marker 32 all the time on the Good Food Instagram channel. And this was back when Instagram was brand new. And Margie, my chef from Marker 32, commented underneath it and said, "This dish looks very familiar." And she wasn't totally jabbing me, but because she did that too, I took great offense to my own stupidity, which was, I'm never going to make it anywhere. I'm never going to do anything if I keep trying to take that easier, softer way, especially in this business. I watched a video from you the other day where you're like, if you don't know it, chefs work long hours, 12 hours, 14 hours. I've been in the kitchen for 20 hours on a Valentine's Day. It's just long, aggravating sometimes. It could be hostile days. Hot kitchen in Florida. Anyway, Lisa said that to me. So what I did was I started thinking about all the things that I loved, all the types of food that I loved. And then I just wrote my first menu at Good Food. And after like 6 months of that menu being out, we got a little more popular. And then we got a little more popular and a little more popular, and then all of a sudden we were full all the time. And unfortunately, what they didn't tell me was, okay, so sometimes God in AA can stand for good orderly direction, right? If you don't really believe in anything. And also ego could stand for edging God out. And unfortunately I won't speak for all chefs, but my ego that first year and a half at Good Food was bolstered from nothing to holy shit. And unfortunately, the last year spent at Good Food was spent arguing with the owners. Like, I knew everything underneath the sun, which I still didn't. I still didn't know how to do inventory properly. I still didn't know how to do a bunch of stuff properly. But I let my ego get so out of control that when it came down to it, I actually sat across from the table from those owners and said, "What are you going to do, fire me?" And she looked at me straight in the face and she said, "Yes, I am. You're fired." And I didn't even bat an eye. I just left, and unfortunately, some bad rumors were started from that, which weren't true. And but I did do that part of it, and even though the second part of it wasn't true, that unfortunately kind of got around, and I was blackballed a little bit from this side of town. And I wound up on the west side with Lisa slinging pizza at a place called Perard's, where is actually how I did wind up meeting you.
It is, and I want to tell the story of how we met because it's moving. So it was moving for me even in the moment. So you had a young lady, and I can't recall her name, but who was working in your kitchen with you. Mm-hmm. And Perard's had evidently been through a few chefs, or whatever they...
You have to understand what Perard's is too. It was a shithole on the west side. I mean, just dumping food out to dump food out. There wasn't, I didn't belong there if I was trying to further my career. I went there because, A, Lisa got a job there and I wanted to work with her, and B, I didn't have any other choices.
Sure. Well, and I also every time you try to move it forward to make it more authentic or more like just like heart. There, I remember you tried to make a meatball. You're like, I can make a fresh meatball every day for less than you can buy this frozen meatball that you're serving for. And they said, no, we like our frozen meatball. Those kind of moments. But anyway, let me come back to how I met you there. So you had a young lady working in the kitchen. I was writing the biggest food blog in Jacksonville, and I got this DM from her that said, I work at Perard's. You have got to come out here and meet this chef. He's incredible. We've had a number of chefs come through here, and none of them taught me. None of them cared. None of them invested in me. And every day, because I want to learn, he teaches me something new, and he cares about me. And you need to come see this. And that was incredibly moving. I'm about to get a tear. I mean, Steve, I don't know if you understand how moving that is, but you like literally.
No, I never knew that. I know the girl you're talking about. And unfortunately, I'm forgetting her name right now, but she was. I've never had anybody speak about me teaching wise in that way. So it's the first time I've heard it too. So I'm extremely grateful. It's bothering me that I can't remember her name.
Yeah, but anyway, for me that was moving, and I went. And this is way the heck out on the west side, and an Italian place nobody's ever heard of.
Especially because at that time, being the bigger blogger, people always said, "Hey, come try my stuff. Hey, come try my stuff," just for a promotional purpose. And here you are getting a message from someone that is just telling you, like, the right story, is telling you about someone who really needs to be known.
It was clear to me that the chef that I was going to see, who turned out to be Steve, was the kind of person that I started the food blog for. Like, I set out on a journey to spotlight people like Steve, because there are these incredible people with heart in the food business, and too often they're kind of stuck in a closet kitchen. They're in a little tiny kitchen, and nobody ever sees them, and nobody gets to experience that passion. And all they hear is when something's wrong. All they hear about is when something's wrong, or somebody decides to make a post on the internet saying how awful their restaurant is, or going on Yelp and spewing God knows what filth, or those kinds of things. And to get to spotlight somebody like you, Steve, was meaningful. It means something, and I'm thankful that you're my friend to this day.
Me too.
Yeah, seriously.
No, I listen. Me and Lisa have this conversation all the time. If I didn't meet you when I met you, and everything just kind of came together at once because of the orbit of Joe Talentino and you, and the couple things I got to do on TV before with Joe, and then the things I did with you. I can't remember how long it was after you and I did something at Perard's where they fired me too. I don't think it was very long. I think it might have been like 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, they fired you and your wife at the same time, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So we went on vacation after working there for a year, and we actually went to New York. I took Lisa to New York for the first time, and when we came back, they called Lisa into the office. They fired her. They didn't want to pay me for the week that I was gone on vacation, and I thought, just being stupid because I was a salaried employee, that I got a week's paid vacation, and they had no intention of paying me that week.
Wow.
So when I came back, I lost a week before, and then when I got back, I can still remember Lisa walking out of the office. She was heated. She was crying. A couple of expletives kind of like flying here or there, and then I walk in there and they tell me I'm gone too, and the whole reason when I got that job, the two people that own that place, Hugh and Carmel, which by the way, this place isn't open anymore. They closed about a year after, maybe like a year and a half. But Hugh, the guy that owned it, he's the one who had big dreams. Like he wanted to do more and be more. When I told him that meatball story, I meant what I said. And I don't know if you remember, but we went to the first GastroFest ever with Perard's.
And GastroFest was like kind of a celebration of food in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Right. So you take Perard's and you put us next to Black Sheep, and it's skipping Orsay. And at the time, it was Tom Gray's other restaurant before it was Prada.
So like a who's who of restaurants in town.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're all there, and then it's freaking Perard's. And we brought the meatball that I made.
I remember tasting it at that event. I remember that. That was a good meatball, man.
So my thing is, I like it when people tell me that I can't do something. Really, 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 really motivates me. Like it motivates me more than anything in this world should motivate a person. And because I was told that not only should I not make the meatball, but that it would never work, I think we won first place that year at GastroFest for that meatball.
That meatball was fire. That
Right.
meatball was
But we won it with all
incredible.
those other big boys around. I didn't have none of those skilled people working for me. I didn't have any of that stuff. We had what we had. The equipment was faltering. It was not the cleanest restaurant by any stretch of the imagination. But we went there, and I didn't expect anything. I think we served that, and we served like a cucumber sandwich of some sort, if I can remember correctly. It's been a long time. But when we walked out of that day, and GastroFest called us to let us know, I was dumbfounded by the fact that like we had people like Black Sheep and Orsay on either side of us. And then I think, not to jump too far ahead in the story, but I wind up obviously being jobless. I see an ad in the paper for the Schnitzel House, and it doesn't say Schnitzel House. It says head chef needed. So I call this guy, winds up being Tom, the old owner of the Schnitzel House, and he wants to meet me at the Applebee's right up the road there in Atlantic. So I go with Lisa. Lisa stays in the car. I go inside. I meet Tom and Martha. Now, mind you, I know that they just moved to the plaza where Good Food Company was. Once again, where my spite comes into play. Because I don't know anything.
It's 2 doors over from
Right.
where
I don't
Good Food
know
Company was.
anything about German food. I don't have an idea of how to make the first thing German. I wouldn't know. It's not something I wanted to do with my career. He starts talking. I realize the proximity is literally like 2 or 3 doors down. And my hate and vitriol for the woman who owned Good Food was so great. I let myself get blinded. And I was just like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it better than anyone could. And I'm going to make this spot be whatever my mind was drumming up at the moment. And Tom was like, do you have any idea how to cook anything German? I was like, I have no idea. I'm like, but I can tell you that I'll keep the kitchen clean. I'll run it to the best of my ability. And if you give me a couple months, I'll figure it out. So they hired me. And ironically, when they were talking to me, they were like, well, we'll have to find a manager. We'll have to do this. I was like, well, my wife is in the car. and she's managed the last 2 places with me. So they brought her in and gave her the job right then and there too.
Oh, awesome.
So when we went into the Schnitzel house, they gave me this menu, and I remember the first day that I walked into the kitchen. There's a wok stove for one, right? So I'm cooking German food on a wok stove, whatever. The side table, which runs down the whole kitchen, has about 10 crock pots on it, and every meal that we're serving off the menu is in those crock pots. And I'm like, what did they hire me for? Like literally, they're just scooping and serving out of a crock pot. They don't need a chef. So I threw all the crock pots out and all the food, and I just said, if you're gonna let me do this, I need to start over from scratch. I can't. I served their food for like 3 weeks. I did as much research as I possibly could, watching German videos. The only thing I can tell you is that even though I don't speak a lick of German, after you watch the same video 100 times, the words to the food kind of start to make sense. So I started mimicking what I could, what I saw, and putting what I would consider Americanization of the food. Because Germans are very bland in their flavor profiles. So not saying that it's not good, because to them it obviously is. They eat a different way in Germany, but it doesn't really fly that well here in America. Americans aren't looking for like a bland veal sausage that looks like a pale, I don't even know what to call it, like a Weisshorst sausage that is just white. You know what I mean? And it really doesn't have a whole lot of flavor per se.
Sure.
So I went to Azar Sausage. I found
He's a
out
local sausage
guy.
maker. Yep.
I found, because we were importing our sausages through Chicago. They were coming in through Chicago and they were coming to Jacksonville, and we were paying a premium to have them shipped from Germany. So I took the packages that had the ingredients on them and I went to Azar and I said, make me these. And he did. And he did a very good job at it. So we partnered with Azar, and that was like the first part of it. And then I figured out the schnitzels, and then I started making the Spätzle from scratch, the red cabbage, the Rindsrouladen, the pork shanks, the pretzels. The pretzels were huge.
The pretzels were magic.
The pretzels were, so the pretzel didn't really even come into play, I think, until your very first thing that you did at the Schnitzel House. Because it was like, I think the reason that I value our friendship is not only because you've helped me along the way, but literally everything that you know how I work. If you come and say, I don't think that you can, or let's try this, I usually am 100% in. The vegan food.
Sure. Well, I want to tell that story. So so Steve is doing pretty good at Schnitzel House, and they're losing a lot of money before he gets there. And then he gets there, and he's getting this thing turned around, and it's headed the right direction and whatnot. And at that time I was putting on vegan events around town. I was putting on other events too, other food events. But we'd come in on a restaurant slowest night, and we'd put on an event. And so I thought, where do they think you can do vegan food anywhere? Where do they think that but people don't think that. Where do they think that we can't do it? Because that's where I want to go do it. And I started thinking, and I said, you know what? German food is like the most meat-centric food on the planet, and especially American perception of German food is incredibly meat-centric. So I went to Steve and I said, Steve, I'm doing these vegan events. I think it would be really cool to do a German Schnitzel House. It'd be a lot of fun. Da, 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 da. And he's like, listen, I'm not vegan. I don't cook vegan stuff.
And as a chef, you probably didn't like it when vegans requested vegan food.
No, I don't. I don't know it. I'll be honest with you. I just don't.
Most chefs don't.
I didn't understand it. My first encounter with a vegan was in Connecticut. I was 22 years old, and I had just cut a turkey wrap with a knife, and then attempted to cut his sandwich, and he freaked out on me. And he said, I don't want you to touch my sandwich with that knife. That was my first encounter with a vegan.
And you're like, these people are the most difficult people.
But it wasn't like, hey sir, could you not cut that with that knife? It was, what are you doing? And I was like, what? You know what I mean? It was very bad. So I don't mean to base my one interaction with that one guy on all vegans.
Sure, but hang on, I didn't finish here. Steve said 3 things to me. We got the first 2. The third one is, I effing hate vegans. That was number 3. I effing hate vegans. And then he says, why do you want me to do a vegan event? I'm at a German restaurant. And I said, you think you're the best chef in Jacksonville? Prove it. And he flipped me the bird. And then he did. I mean, one of the best vegan meals I've ever eaten in my life, and I've eaten a lot of vegan meals because I put on vegan events. I'm not vegan, eat tons of meat, love bacon, and all the good stuff. But, I mean, Steve took it as a challenge, and he didn't just say, hey, I'm going to do a vegan event. He said, you know what? I'm going to do vegan comfort food. And we did a vegan comfort food sort of brunch, right?
Right.
And, I mean, it's vegan biscuits and gravy and chicken and waffles.
Right.
And, I mean, vegan food a lot of times tastes spongy or styrofoamy. This vegan food was delicious. It tasted so good. And we sold out in like 2 days. The place was packed. And then your phone's ringing off the hook, right?
Phone was ringing off the hook. I started a vegan brunch, and I started mirroring what we had on the menu and seeing how I can make a vegan version of it. So that was very on in my infancy with vegan food. What I noticed was that there was nobody, like you said, when a vegan would order before, and I would be like, God, just stop. Like, I don't want nothing to do with it. What I realized after he brought it to me was what an untapped market this is. And this was years ago, so this isn't like now where everything's just readily available. And,
sure.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's
There was
got
very few
right.
vegan restaurants catering to vegans.
Right, everyone's got vegan stuff on their menu now. So what I thought was I'm already
Well,
having...
by the way, Steve, that I set out to make that happen, by the way. That's a big part of why. But
So I'm thinking to myself, I'm already having trouble making this restaurant grow. If no one's catering to them, I will. And so I started, and as I started to learn a couple of things. One, the chicken and waffles, it took me a little while to get it right. But when I did, I was like, holy crap, it looks like chicken, tastes like chicken. And if I wasn't looking for the texture of the chicken, I would totally think it was. So after we improved it a couple times, you know what I mean, I actually wound up, I think, with a good final product. That inspired me to move on to the next thing. We used to work with a company, I think is still here in Jacksonville. It was her and her boyfriend, Sam, and I can't remember his name, but they owned the Zen Butcher.
yeah.
And they were doing vegan sausages. So she came to see me, and I brought her bratwurst on board and something else.
They're pretty good, too.
Yeah. So then it got me thinking, well, she's not even a chef, and she's making vegan sausages. So then my mind started to get twisted about, I know I could do this better.
You felt like you got told. You felt like, wait, I feel like I'm being told I can't do this. Let me go do this again.
So I started experimenting, and I came up with a version I thought tasted better. It snapped like a real sausage. Like I went through this whole thing, and they were a pain in the butt to make. They're absolutely a pain. Anything that I did for vegans, like every time I talk to them, they're like, we're tired of salads, we're tired of vegetables. We want to have something with flavor and texture and imaginative and all these things, which played into what I could do as a chef to make those things happen. But I just want to say that if a vegan's goal is to eat healthy, none of that crap I was making was healthy.
I'm not sure that it is for a lot of vegans. I think a lot of vegans, and to some extent it is, but they still want to be able to go out and indulge, you know? I try to eat pretty healthy most of the time now too, but like, I'm going to have a meal or two where I'm going to go bonkers, you know? And I think that's what they were hoping for from you, because there was nowhere else to get it.
So what I understand now is exactly that. Like, they can eat a salad at home. They can eat beans or whatever it is that they want to eat, however they want to cook it. They can eat all those things at home. They wanted to go to a place. They wanted to sit down for dinner. They wanted to have 4 or 5 of their friends that were not vegan be able to order something nice and still have something they thought would add to the and be able to be happy about it.
Yeah, this has always been my pitch to chefs when I'm like, you should put a couple legitimately good vegan items on your menu that you like to cook, because I always say, like, if you go and you get a menu and there's like one vegan item, I call it the second class citizen selection, because it's the thing the chef didn't want to make, you know, and the vegan. This is my pitch to chef is always, the vegan's the veto vote in the group. You're not doing this to get the vegan. You're doing it to the 6 other people that are going to dinner with them, because they're not coming if there's not something for their vegan friend.
Right, which I think helps turn every business around when you think about it from that perspective. So anyway, you know, we did it, and then this was about the time where they were experimenting with the Impossible Burger.
Yep.
And I remember reading about it and seeing it, and I was like, man, if I could get that at the Schnitzel House, we would just kill it.
I think you were like the first restaurant in town that got it.
We were. So we went what happened was I started calling all these, because so if you use Cisco or Cheney or US Foods, they can only get you so far because they all buy from this thing called DOT, right? So I called DOT, and I was like, what's it going to take for you guys to go to San Francisco and get this for me? And they said that they couldn't help me. So I called San Francisco and I called Impossible Burger, and I asked them, and they weren't willing to ship to me direct. They said that DOT had to take it on. I can't remember the exact process, but I finally got DOT to purchase the Impossible through Seabreeze.
Okay.
And at the time, I think it was like $17. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous for these burgers. But we were absolutely the first people in Jacksonville to get it. So what we did was we made pretty decent burgers at Schnitzel House too. So we started doing like Wednesdays. We would do buy one burger, get one burger for $5. But we would do the version like I had this one burger. Crap, it's gonna skip my brain now. But I had like beer cheese and onions. Everybody came for it all the time. I don't know, it's surprised you don't remember because you
I loved it. It was great.
I just can't remember the name of it. Anyway, we started mimicking and doing the Impossible Burger the same exact way. So we were doing that, and all of a sudden we had a line out the door of people.
Yeah, well, even the very first time that you guys did a vegan brunch was like the same week that we did the vegan event. And I remember you telling me the story afterward that like your wife comes to grab you before service, and you guys weren't seating a lot of people for brunch at that time. And your wife comes to grab you before service, and she's like, Steve, you got to see this. And he walks out in the dining room, and he looks out the window, and there's this line down the sidewalk of people waiting to get in. And like, earth-shattering, right? And you seat every seat in the restaurant. It was a pretty good-sized restaurant. You seat every seat in the restaurant at the beginning, and then it never stops, right? And you're running out of everything. Because how could you possibly know that you're going to do like 10x your normal business, and it's all going to be vegan?
So what do we do? Once again, I let my ego get the best of me. I knew that we had taken the Schnitzel House, both my wife and I, because she deserves just as much credit as I do. She turned around the front, she turned around the bar program, she ran an Oktoberfest every year that we're there that was off the charts.
She's a rock star, man.
Right, she's
great.
a rock star. So I don't want to make my career doesn't happen without Lisa. My kids too, because both my kids work in the kitchen. Anyway, so we're at Schnitzel House. We're there for 5 years. We go from what is a $250,000 a year restaurant that is in the red to my last year there where we're at $1 million and we're in the black. My question for the owner at that point is, I would really like to make more money because I stayed the same for all those 5 years. Yeah. He offers me profit sharing. I think it's a wonderful idea. So a month goes by, 2 months go by, they come into town from Virginia. I sit down with them, so does Lisa. They slide me a check. I'm thinking, finally, I finally made a difference somewhere that an owner's going to see what I can bring to the table. I flipped over the check, it said $700. I lost my fucking mind. I was like, you're shitting me, right? And he was like, no, that's what, and I was like, at that moment in my head, it already triggered me leaving. It already, because I was like, this dude just doesn't respect what we've done.
Well, it's hard to think that when you 4x their business and then that's the reward.
Right. So I don't know what I was expecting, to be quite honest with you, but I just knew without like a fourth digit in play, I was just like, I'm not killing myself at this place anymore. The 16-hour days, I'm just not doing it. So what had happened was my boss now, I work at River and Post. I'm the executive chef there. I've been there for 5 years.
Which, by the way, is a beautiful restaurant. Huge. How many seats in River and Post? It's massive.
330 downstairs.
It's one of the biggest restaurants in Jacksonville.
And like we have another 255 on the roof, I think.
Yeah, so like 500 plus seats. Like I could count on one hand maybe how many restaurants, you might know, Dennis, but have that many seats in Jacksonville. And they have the most incredible rooftop view in the city.
So just because I'm me, and we've already talked about how I am, I didn't even realize when I reached out to the person who had the ad out. See, Jeff and I worked at Marker 32.
Jeff is one of the partners in
Right.
River and Post.
He's one of the owners, Jeff McCusker. When I worked at Marker 32 as a grill cook, Jeff was a server. And he was just like this bleach blonde, he's not really bleach blonde, but he was like this little surfer dude who was serving tables, and like me and him used to get into it all the time, like, you know what I mean, like we just didn't get along all that well, and he tells us
Sure, that's not unusual for kitchen in front of house, right? Not
he-
too unusual.
If you listen to him tell the story, he'll tell you that there was one time me and him were actually going to go outside and fight. I don't remember it, but I did get blackout mad a lot back then, so I'm not really sure. So anyway, I reach out to him, and I'm not even putting one and one together that he's the Jeff from there, because why would I think that Jeff, the server, could all of a sudden own this place? So I sent him an email and I said, hey, listen, this is what I've been doing at the Schnitzel House. I think that, you know, if you have anything to offer, I might be able to do something with you, for you, whatever. I think he sent back an email that said they weren't interested. They had an executive chef or whatever. A couple months goes.
Which they went in and brought in somebody who had worked in famous chefs' kitchens and had a great story, and pretty much fizzled pretty quickly.
Right. So the first chef, she lasted like 6 months after they opened. Unfortunately, she succumbed to her alcoholism too.
Sad.
It is sad. And then the next guy, Eric, that they brought in from some big country club or whatever, and didn't really pan out to what they needed him to be either. So a few months goes by, and I get this random email that says, hey, do you want to come by and talk to me? So still yet not knowing that it's Jeff, I go upstairs and I get into the room and I sit down and I'm like, oh shit, it's Jeff. You know, and we start talking and I was like, I still don't know what I'm here for. Like, what did you need? Like a sous chef, like whatever. And he was like, no, I need to hire an executive chef. And he goes, and most importantly, I need to know that you're not going to want to come here and change everything. So I need to know if I slide my menu at you, will you cook my menu? And you know, my ego is just all over the damn place. So of course my ego is like, no, I just want to do my own food. And then I looked at him and I said, you know what? If you pay me what I think I'm worth, I'll cook whatever the hell you want me to. And you know, he made an offer. And then of course the sad part of this story is Lisa loved the Schnitzel House. She had no quarrels with the check that was flipped over.
Lisa against Steve's wife.
Right. She had no quarrels with the check that was flipped over. It was me. It was me who drove the next few months of just being miserable all the time because I was so infuriated. Almost like, how dare they try to buy me off for $700 kind of thing. I like went through this whole thing in my head. And Lisa knows me well enough to know when I'm stewing. And she's like, I know this is just going to end bad. It's just going to end bad. And when I went to see Jeff, he took his time. He thought about it. He called me. He made me an offer. I refused it because it, once again, wasn't what I thought I was worth. We went back and forth a couple more times. He finally called me and said, I'm not willing to lose you over XYZ. I told him that I would accept the job. I would need to give the Schnitzel House 30 days just so they could try to...
Right, because they're hosed without you. It's all your recipes.
Right.
Half the menu now, by the way, half the menu now, and
Vegan.
half the revenue is vegan.
So
yeah.
Lisa and me get into this discussion about how happy she is at the Schnitzel House and she doesn't really want to leave. And then my ego bolsters up once again and I start saying things like, I think I deserve this. I want to go see if I could do something bigger, blah, blah, freaking blah.
Well, it is a big move up the chain for you too, right?
Right, but I really wasn't. Okay, so my kids and my wife helped the Schnitzel House be what it was going to be.
Sure.
When I took the job at River and Post, he told me, I have no desire for you to come here with your family. I know that you operate a family business.
Sure.
I don't want Lisa. I don't want Megan. I don't want Ryan. So what you're
by the way, most business owners are really leery of bringing a whole family in because it creates a lot of risk
Well,
for
it's
you,
trouble
right?
if you leave.
Right, exactly.
That's
exactly
the
what happened
problem.
during Schnitzel House,
Yes.
right? Everybody's
Right.
there and they're all gone. Boom.
So what happens is
You have a lot of respect for you to give them a month too, by the way, because a lot of people wouldn't,
Well,
especially if they're mad at him.
I'll get to that in a second.
Sure. Well, maybe you didn't stay home.
Well, so
Which I understand.
Lisa and me get into a little bit of a discussion that really doesn't leave either one of us feeling good about anything. I'm stuck in my ego and myself. I'm going to go do this. So she says, fine, go do it. Lisa left and went to work with a friend of mine named Trey over at Blackfly as a manager. And my daughter went to the same thing. Now, I worked with Trey at Marker, so I trusted him with my wife and my daughter.
Yeah.
My son had decided to just not work for a little while, which was fine. He was like 17 at the time. He still had to finish school. So I get to River and Post. Some things happen at Blackfly. I get to River and Post and realize that Jeff never sold me the bag of good. Like, he didn't tell me, hey, just cook my menu. He didn't tell me, like, hey, by the way, there's really no recipes for anything. Everything is kind of just all over the place. His words to me were just figure it out.
Yeah.
So once again, because I like to figure things out, I went hard to work trying to figure it out. What happened was eventually Megan wound up not getting along with Trey in some way, and I asked if I could bring Megan to River and Post, and I hired her as a pantry cook for like $9 an hour or something. Like she was just working pantry. And then a few weeks goes by, we're missing some hostesses. Lisa had quit Black Fly too. I believe, without putting words into her mouth, maybe a little bit depressed about what just happened at Schnitzel House. So she agrees to meet with Jeff, and Jeff also agreed to meet with her because he absolutely did. He was so against it. He agrees to meet with her and gives her a hostess job. And he says, whatever you do, I want you to understand that you are just a hostess here. Stay in your fucking lane. Those were his words to her. Right? So she does. And what winds up happening is there was another man, I won't mention who he is, but he was a manager there. He had some of the same proclivities I did. And unfortunately, he succumbed to his as well. So what happens is we're there for like 3 months, and he disappears because of his proclivities, and then Lisa just happens to be sitting there. And it was easy to say, hey, do you want to do this? And then, of course, because she is her, she just steps into the role and knocks it out of the park because she's her.
Well, Lisa has this innate, natural sense of hospitality.
Yeah.
It's just in her, right? Like,
you don't listen. Lisa doesn't need me to succeed. She doesn't need anybody to succeed. She's like that typical Southern. I will make everybody feel welcome.
Yes.
And we talked a little bit before. Sometimes when the guest gets angry, they go write those Yelp things or whatever. Lisa's the only person I've ever seen in the history of me working in restaurants where the guy could be at the table cussing up a storm. F this place. I'm not coming back here. You can send Lisa to the table, and like 15 minutes later, we're giving the guy dessert because he's okay with everything that just happened, and he's smiling and laughing now. I've never seen any manager anywhere I've ever worked be able to turn somebody so angry and bring them back down to zero. I don't know.
You picked a good one, buddy.
Yeah, I don't think I picked her. I think she kind of found me, but that's besides the point. Anyway, so at River and Post, I was told emphatically, my first day there, I don't want vegan food here. Not in a way, once again, going back to cook my menu, he didn't want me to mess with that menu at all. So it wasn't emphatically like I don't want vegan food here, but that's going to alter the menu where we're at now, so I don't want that. So I think what happened was like a year, maybe 6 months to a year, me being there, he got stuck in the elevator with a couple vegans that had come there to see me, and I was running some vegan specials. They accosted him pretty much in the elevator wanting to know why he didn't have more vegan food on the menu. So he came to me that night and he was like, I want you to put 3 vegan dishes on the menu by the end of the week. And then that's how that happened. And I can't remember what the first incarnation was, but I got to do some really cool things there because more elevated seafoods and steak, you know what I mean? So I got to be a little bit crazier with what I was trying.
It's awesome, man. What a cool redemption story, Steve. It really is. To go through what you've gone through, to go through addiction and have addiction take you to a very dark place, and then to find, for people to come into your life that helped you find a path to where you need to be, right? And then you kind of just climbed your way back up the ladder, and now you're at one of the biggest restaurants in town.
It's got to feel good
I've been there a
to
while.
look back and be able to see all that you've accomplished.
It is. But how long have you owned Blue Bamboo?
We're in year 19.
Okay. So from an owner's perspective, you know that when you treat people well, they tend to stay, right? For the most part. Some people just leave because they leave.
Yep.
I will tell you that Jeff and Bob, and nobody really knows this story, but it's kind of important to tell when you're thinking about people you work for. So you guys heard me tell you the story about the check and how I was just irate about the check. COVID comes along, and of course everyone's in a mass panic. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? We tried to stay open for to-go food for like 3 or 4 days on the 30-day close down or whatever.
Well, it's tough when you're a nice place doing
Right.
seafood and steaks.
I think we sold one thing in 3 days, and we decided to go ahead and just close down.
Sure.
But when we closed down, no one had any answers for anything. No one did. We didn't know. I didn't know if I was coming back to a job. The 120 people we had working for us definitely didn't know if they were coming back to a job. So what do? We shut down. We go into the coolers. We break everything down. We make baskets. All the employees come take all the food. right? That's a nice gesture.
It is.
Okay. The next thing kind of blew my mind though. Before all the PPP, all that crap that they tried to do afterwards to make sure businesses were taken care of, those two sat down and said that we're going to take care of the people that work here no matter what. So for the next 4 weeks, whatever they made for the 4 weeks previous, we're going to pay them.
Wow.
This is somebody saying,
That's incredible,
I'm
right?
going
Like,
to pay you out of my own pocket
Yeah.
because I don't want to lose you because you're valuable. I couldn't get this dude to pay me more than $700 when I quadrupled his business. This guy, after a year and a half of working for me, I was going to get paid regardless because I was salaried, so I was
Right.
getting paid regardless. But the dishwashers didn't know where their next check was coming from. That moment for me solidified my loyalty to River and Post. Now since then, we've been able to open up River and Fort, and we're like,
down in St. Augustine.
right,
Yeah.
we're like 4 months away from opening up Saint, which is a few doors down from Fort.
St. Augustine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. And you know, we've grown tremendously. Me starting brunch at River and Post has helped tremendously. I mean, our brunch menu has gotten so extensive. I think I might have started with 10 items. I think we're up to like 30. I mean, and once again, a line out the door when we open. You know what I mean? Like, those are the things that kind of excite me a little bit because...
It should. It's validation of the work that you do.
Right, and Jeff never put his finger on me when it came to the food. He never said, hey, if anything, every time he comes and eats brunch, he's like, I can't believe you put this brunch menu together. Like, it's amazing. You know what I mean? But it's stupid to think that brunch helped change me twice. You know what I mean? Like, it helped change me at the Schnitzel House. It's helped change the way we do business at Post.
Steve, you know that it's not brunch; it's love. That's what this is. It is because you did the vegan brunch, or you did the vegan brunch because vegans were reaching out saying we care about you. We want this thing,
That's
right?
not true.
Oh, come on.
It's not.
Well, you were
It's
also
why you
smart
kept
enough
working
see
at it to
that
make it.
that's
I know, but I don't. Listen, I appreciate all the vegans that
Yeah,
came
yeah,
in. There's no
Sure,
doubt.
yeah.
But in the beginning,
I'm not saying you loved vegan.
Well, in the beginning, I felt like I did always, which this is more of a pain in my ass than it is a help.
Most chefs feel that way.
Right.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I saw that, wow, they're going to show in droves
Yep.
if I pay a little bit of attention to what's going on. And then, of course, because my brain works the way it does, how do I figure this out? How do I figure that out? How do I figure
right.
this out?
It's always solve the puzzle. I'm the
Right.
same way.
Right. So, I mean, like those things, I think those things make a good chef. I'm not sure. I think to be a good chef, you have to teach well too. And the reason I'm so skeptical about what that girl said was because I don't know if I teach the best. I teach the way that I learn. And my learning process has always been like, if Chef Dennis were to take me in the kitchen right now and show me a dish, I can repeat it 100 times out of 100. That's just the way my brain works. But you know, not everybody that comes works for me can watch me do something one time and then just repeat the process. And that's where I lack as a chef because I have trouble teaching those people.
I think when you're excellent at the things that you care about, that you do well, oftentimes you're very self-critical about the things that you don't do very well. I know I am one of those. I analyze everything I do after I do it, and it's never exactly right, and I always have to rip apart the parts I did wrong because really what I care about is being better tomorrow. And I think you're probably the same way.
I do, and too, there are a lot of people who have come along through especially the 5 years I've worked at Post. We've been through quite a bit of people.
But turnover in the restaurant industry is kind of...
But in the last 2 years, I have managed to build this little nucleus of kids. And I say kids, some of them are 30, some of them are 20. But I've managed to build this little nucleus of people that get along really well. And while I have the typical 2-monther, 3-monther, I'm here for a couple days till they figure out where I'm working and they take my money away from me kind of thing. I've had those, but for the most part, I got this good little nucleus of people. Margie, who was my chef at Marker 32, she works in the kitchen with us. You know what I mean? Like, I have this knowledge around me that really helps me all the time. I don't have to be the guy that's in the kitchen all the time making this special. Why? Because I have people in place now that can do that. And I always thought my job was always going to be, how do I make the next thing? How do I make somebody come here? Now it's more about numbers and inventory and scheduling and all the other crap that if you ask me if you want to be a chef, these are not the things I wanted to do.
Sure. Well, like we said in the last podcast, you have to be a good chef. You have to be able to really cook. You have to be able to market do marketing,
That's
get the word
big
out.
one, yes.
And then you also have got to be a good business person to be successful with a restaurant.
Right.
Or you have to find people who can slide into those roles and do it well for you.
I think as a group, we have like a really good core of management for our group, and it's expanding now because of Saint. And I think they're pretty. What's the word I'm looking for? It's like we get some people sometimes that wind up being bad apples, but then we wind up once again with this little nucleus of people that just want to stay and they want to grow within the company. And Jeff and Bob are really big on, hey man, if we've done 3 and all 3 work out well, why wouldn't we do a 4th? You know what I mean? Like, and to me, if you see that in somebody where we can repeat the process, and it's like almost like the numbers are identical for the restaurants. If you can do that, you got like I don't know what to say. It's like a chilling thing because to come from a place like the Schnitzel House, that when you look at their books, how are you even paying rent every month? Like that kind of thing. So like you should have told me this before I took the job, because we're gonna be closed in a month and I'm gonna be out of a job. Like that's how bad it was. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But then you get to like a place like this. Do you remember in the beginning? Because I know you don't come to Post all that often, but in the beginning, we fed the rooftop and the downstairs from the downstairs kitchen.
Yeah.
That was insane.
Brutal.
You would have 9 food runners running food on carts up the elevator to go find people that didn't really exist because they weren't staying in the same spot. So then like a year and a half in, we decided to open that little kitchen on the roof and only serve like tapas up there. Again, changed the business completely. You know what I mean? Like totally different. The kitchen downstairs wasn't stressed. We could put out food in better times downstairs to the people. We didn't have to have 35 food runners on staff to run food up and down the
What's
stairs.
tough? Like, how many restaurants of that size are there? You know what I mean? There aren't a lot, and so trying to learn the logistics of that has got to be one heck of a challenge.
Yeah, it's with
500 seats and
that
200
size.
upstairs, right? Like we watched Calford Chop House, which is the biggest steakhouse in town. They had months of brutal challenges and like cold steaks coming out and issues because they had 2 stories and trying to figure out how to do 2 stories. There weren't many people in town that had ever done it, if anybody, that they could find to go do it. So you had to learn on the fly. You had to solve the puzzle like you do with everything else.
A friend of mine has a breakfast place, and he said, we've always done these small breakfast places. And then here he is now, a 300-seat breakfast place he was opening up in a town nearby. He said the only way we could think about doing what we do is have 2 identical lines and doing the exact same thing, but half the dining room goes to one side, half that goes to the other. And in the end, that's a smart idea, but it's those things you have to figure out.
You know who does that for corporation-wise? Cheesecake Factory, like in Vegas, they have 2 kitchens because they're open 24 hours a day. They swap 12 hours.
Yes.
That's very cool. Well, Steve, it's been a real pleasure to have you on the show and have you open up and share this story. It means a lot to us that you would do that with us.
And it's so inspiring, I think our watchers and listeners out there will find that, there's hope.
There was no hope without God. Absolutely. No, none whatsoever. So if you're looking for him, he's there if you look for him.
Well, thanks for joining us today. Thank you for joining us today. And if you made it to the end, it would mean a lot to us if you would subscribe to the channel. And if you have questions for us, or you just want to share, feel free to dive in with a comment. We'll see you next time.